The piece of paper felt like it was burning a hole in my palm. I sat in the back of the taxi, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Just 20 minutes ago, Dr. Evans, a man who had treated me for over 2 decades, had skipped the usual pleasantries about my blood pressure. Instead, under the pretense of handing me a prescription, he had pressed a folded note into my hand. His eyes held a terror I had never seen before. When I unfolded it in the elevator, the message was scribbled in shaky handwriting. "Do not go home. They are trying to commit you. Get out now." My name is Evelyn Harper. I am 72 years old, and for the last 40 years, I believed I was the matriarch of a loving, close-knit family. I adopted my son, Robert, when he was an infant. I gave him everything: private schools, cars, a debt-free start to life. When my husband passed, Robert, his wife Karen, and my granddaughter Mia moved in to take care of me. But as the taxi idled at a red light, the blindfold was finally ripped from my eyes. I didn't go straight to the house. I asked the driver to circle the block. When I finally entered, the house was suspiciously quiet. I crept toward the kitchen, my orthopedic shoes silent on the hardwood. I heard them, Robert and Karen, whispering aggressively. "She's losing it, Rob. Wouldn't sign the papers, but we can find another doctor, one who likes cash. We just need to declare her incompetent by Friday." "I know," Robert replied, his voice dripping with an annoyance that broke my heart. "If we don't get power of attorney soon, the loan sharks are going to break my legs. The house is worth at least $800,000. We put her in the facility, sell the place, and our problems disappear." I leaned against the hallway wall, trying not to vomit. Loan sharks? Selling my home? Putting me in a facility? Then I heard my granddaughter, Mia. "Make sure you do it before the semester starts. I need my tuition money. I'm not waiting until she kicks the bucket naturally." The betrayal was physical. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut. They thought I was a senile, helpless old woman. They thought I was broke, surviving on a meager pension and the value of the house. They looked at me and saw a burden. They saw a piggy bank to be smashed open. But there was one thing they didn't know. One massive, life-altering detail I had kept from Robert his entire life to teach him the value of hard work. My late husband hadn't just left me the house. He had been a silent partner in a tech firm in the 90s. I wasn't just getting by on a pension. I had 3 offshore accounts totaling nearly $4 million and a villa in Italy I hadn't visited in years. I wasn't a helpless victim. I was a sleeping dragon, and they had just poked me with a sharp stick. I retreated to my room silently. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I packed a single bag with my passports, my bank ledgers, and my medication. I walked out the back door, leaving a note on the counter that simply said, "Gone to visit a friend. Don't wait up." I took a taxi to the Grand Continental Hotel and booked the presidential suite. As I sat on the velvet sofa sipping a martini and looking over the city lights, my phone began to buzz. Robert, then Karen, then Mia. They were panicking, not because they loved me, but because their golden goose had just wandered out of the pen. I let it ring. I picked up the hotel phone and dialed the number of the most ruthless estate attorney in the city, a man named Mr. Sterling. "Mr. Sterling," I said when he answered, "I want to sue my family, and I don't just want to win, I want to destroy them." Just as I hung up, my personal cell phone pinged with a voicemail. It was Robert. I played it, expecting a plea for me to come home. Instead, his voice was cold, menacing, and unfamiliar. "Mom, if you don't come back in an hour, we're calling the police to report a missing dementia patient, and when they find you, you'll never see the outside of a padded room." I smiled at the phone. He had no idea he had just handed him the first piece of evidence for his own prison sentence.
The investigation. The morning sun hit the floor-to-ceiling windows of the presidential suite, but I wasn't admiring the view. I was sitting across from Mr. Sterling and a private investigator he had recommended, a sharp-eyed woman named Jessica. "Mrs. Harper," Jessica began, sliding a manila folder across the marble coffee table. "You were right to leave. It's much worse than you thought." I opened the folder. The first page was a credit report. My credit report. "What is this?" "Karen has been busy," Jessica explained. "She opened 6 credit cards in your name over the last 8 months. She's racked up nearly $50,000 in debt. Designer bags, spa treatments, and, curiously, a lot of payments to a motel on the outskirts of town." "A motel?" Jessica nodded. "She's not going to yoga, Mrs. Harper. She's meeting your neighbor, Greg. They've been having an affair for 2 years. And your son, he lost his job 6 months ago. He's been intercepting your mail to hide his unemployment notices. The loan sharks he mentioned, that's real. He owes a gambling syndicate over $100,000. I felt sick, but the nausea was quickly replaced by a cold, hard rage. They weren't just waiting for me to die. They were actively picking my bones clean while I was still breathing. "And Mia?" I asked, dreading the answer. "She's pregnant. She's hiding it from her parents. She plans to use the money they steal from you to get an apartment with her boyfriend, who, by the way, is currently on parole for theft." I closed the folder. The family I had sacrificed everything for, the son I held when he had nightmares, the granddaughter I taught to read, was a cesspool of lies and criminal intent. "So, what's the plan?" Mr. Sterling asked, tapping his pen. "We can go to the police now with the fraud charges. Karen goes to jail for identity theft, Robert for conspiracy." "No," I said, standing up and smoothing down my new silk dress. "They want to declare me incompetent? They want to sell my house. Let's let them try." I looked at Jessica. "Can you find out exactly when they plan to make their move on the house?" "They have a meeting with a shady real estate agent today at 2 p.m. They're bringing a notary who is known for flexibility regarding signatures." "Perfect," I said. "I'm going shopping. I need a new look for my funeral." I spent the next 3 hours at the city's best salon. I cut off my frazzled gray bun and got a sleek silver bob. I bought a tailored red power suit that cost more than Karen's car. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a grandmother. I saw a CEO. I saw a predator. At 1:55 p.m., I walked into the real estate office where my family was gathered. I stayed out of sight in the lobby, listening. "My mother is unwell," Robert was saying to the agent. "She can't travel, but she signed the power of attorney this morning. We need to list the house immediately. Cash buyers only." "And you have the deed?" the agent asked greedily. "Right here," Karen said, her voice shaking with excitement. I signaled Mr. Sterling, who was standing by the door with 2 uniformed police officers he had hired as escorts. I stepped into the room. The clicking of my heels on the tile floor made them turn. The color drained from Robert's face so fast he looked like a corpse. Karen dropped her purse. Mia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Hello, family," I said, my voice steady and loud. "I hear you're selling my house," which is strange considering the owner is standing right here, and she certainly isn't incompetent. Robert stammered, trying to regain control. "Mom, you escaped. Officer, thank God you found her. She's having an episode. She doesn't know what she's doing." He reached for me, trying to grab my arm to play the concerned son. I pulled back and slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me," I snapped. I pulled out my phone. "You want to talk about episodes? Let's talk about the one I'm about to broadcast." I held up my phone. The screen showed the logo of the biggest social media streaming platform. "I'm live, Robert, and 30,000 people are watching you try to rob your mother."
The viral confession. The red live indicator on my phone screen pulsed like a heartbeat. The comments were scrolling up so fast they were a blur. "OMG, is this real? Look at his face." "Get him, Grandma." "Mom, put the phone down," Robert hissed, his eyes darting around the room. The real estate agent looked like he wanted to dissolve into the floor. The corrupt notary was already inching toward the exit, but the police officers blocked the door. "No, I don't think I will," I said, addressing the camera lens. "For those of you just joining, this is my son, Robert. He's trying to sell my house because he owes $100,000 to a gambling ring. And that is his wife, Karen, who has stolen my identity to fund her affair with my neighbor." Karen let out a shriek. "You're lying! She's crazy! Officer, arrest her!" "Identity theft isn't a delusion, Karen," Mr. Sterling interjected, stepping forward with the stack of documents Jessica had compiled. "We have the credit card applications with your IP address. We have the footage of you using Mrs. Harper's name at the bank." Mia, who had been shrinking into the corner, suddenly spoke up. "Grandma, please stop. You're ruining our lives." I turned the camera on her. "You're ruining your life, Mia? You were willing to let them lock me away in a state facility so you could get tuition money. You watched me raise you, and you sold me out for a semester at state college." The stream count hit 50,000 viewers. The police officers were now moving in, not on me, but on Karen and the notary. "We need to ask you some questions about these documents, ma'am," one officer said, taking Karen by the elbow. "Robert!" Karen screamed. "Do something!" But Robert was paralyzed. He was staring at the phone in my hand, realizing that his reputation, his lies, and his future were disintegrating in real time. "This isn't over, Mom," Robert whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and hatred. "You think you can embarrass us like this? We're family." "We were family," I corrected him. "Now you are just defendants." I ended the live stream. The silence that followed was deafening. The police escorted Karen and the notary out for questioning regarding the forged documents. Robert was told not to leave town. I walked out of that office with my head held high, but as soon as I got into Mr. Sterling's car, I began to shake. It was adrenaline, grief, and exhaustion all at once. "You did incredible, Evelyn," Mr. Sterling said gently. "But you need to know this was just the skirmish. The war is the trial. They won't plead guilty. They're too narcissistic. They will try to destroy your character in court." "Let them try," I whispered. That night back at the hotel, I felt lonely for the first time. I had won the battle, but I had lost everyone. I sat on the edge of the bed looking at old photos on my phone. Photos of Robert's graduation, Mia's ballet recital. Was it all a lie? Had they always hated me? A knock on the hotel door interrupted my pity party. I looked through the peephole. It was Mia. She looked disheveled, her eyes red from crying. She was alone. I opened the door but left the security chain on. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't call security." "Because I have something you need," Mia said, her voice shaking. "Dad is on the phone with his lawyer right now. They're not just going to say you're incompetent. They're planting evidence. They're going to say you abused me." I unhooked the chain and opened the door. "Come in." Mia sat on the sofa, refusing a drink. "They want me to testify that you hit me," she confessed, tears streaming down her face. "Dad said if I don't do it, he'll kick me out and tell everyone about the baby." "But you're here," I said. "Why?" Mia reached into her pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. "Because I recorded them tonight. I recorded them planning the perjury. I recorded Dad admitting he stole your jewelry last year. I'm done, Grandma. I want to switch sides." The final verdict. The courtroom was packed. My live stream had turned the Harper case into a national sensation. People I didn't know were wearing t-shirts that said Team Evelyn. It was surreal, but I remained focused. I sat next to Mr. Sterling, looking across the aisle at Robert and Karen. They looked haggard, but they wore suits that I knew they couldn't afford, likely paid for by selling the last of my jewelry they could find. The defense strategy was vicious, just as Mia had warned. Their lawyer painted me as a tyrannical, abusive mother who had driven her son to desperation. They claimed the money I had hidden was proof of my deceitful nature. Mrs. Harper hoarded millions while her son struggled, the lawyer shouted, pointing an accusing finger at me. Is that the action of a loving mother? I stayed calm. Then it was our turn. Mr. Sterling stood up. The defense rests on the idea that Mrs. Harper owes her adult son a living, but we are here to prove criminal intent. He turned to the judge. I would like to call a surprise witness, Mia Harper. Robert and Karen froze. They swiveled around to look at the back of the courtroom. Mia walked in, head down, clutching her purse. She took the stand. Mia, Mr. Sterling asked, did your grandmother ever abuse you? No, Mia said clearly into the microphone. Never. And why did your parents claim she did? Because they needed a reason to invalidate her will and take control as my assets before the gambling debts caught up with my father. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Robert stood up. She's lying. She's a child. She doesn't know what she's saying. Sit down, the judge bellowed. Mia, Mr. Sterling continued, do you have proof of this conspiracy? Yes. Mia handed the USB drive to the bailiff. This is a recording from 2 nights ago. My father is instructing me on exactly what lies to tell this court, and my mother is discussing how to forge my grandmother's signature on a retro-dated will. We played the audio. Robert's voice filled the silent courtroom, clear as a bell, instructing his daughter to commit perjury. Karen's voice followed, laughing about how I would rot in a state home while they vacationed in my Italian villa. The jury didn't even need to leave the room to deliberate. The look of disgust on their faces was the verdict. In the end, justice was swift and brutal. Karen was sentenced to 8 years for identity theft, fraud, and elder abuse. Robert received 12 years for conspiracy, grand larceny, and perjury. As the bailiffs handcuffed them, Robert looked back at me. Mom, please, you can't let them take me. I'm your son. I walked up to the railing. I looked him in the eye, searching for the little boy I had adopted 40 years ago. He wasn't there. Only a stranger remained. My son died a long time ago, Robert, I said softly. You're just a man who made a bet against the wrong woman. 6 months later, I sat in the garden of my new, smaller cottage. It was peaceful. The flowers were blooming and the air smelled of jasmine. Mia sat across from me, studying for her pre-law exams. She was showing now, 6 months pregnant, but she looked healthy and safe. Grandma, asked Mia as she looked up from her book, do you ever regret it, sending them away? I took a sip of my iced tea and looked at the gate, which was locked and secure. I regret that I had to, but I learned the most important lesson of my life. What's that? That family isn't about whose blood runs in your veins. It's about who stands by your side when the world tries to bury you. I smiled at her. Now, get back to studying. We have a baby to prepare for, and I plan on spending every cent of my millions on the 2 of us.